All right. Good morning, everyone. Today, we're looking at using the quadratic formula. Guys, last week we learned completing the square, guys, and solving equations by completing the square. Guys, where the quadratic formula comes from, it can be derived by solving the standard form of a quadratic equation by completing the square. Okay? You're solving this by taking this standard form here, and they complete the square, guys. What they did, I mean, you can just read through the steps here. They divide each side by a, okay? Subtract the CA from both sides. Complete the square step. Factoring that left side, perfect trinomial. Guys, simplify the right side. So they took this and they simplified it, making a common denominator, okay? And that results in b squared minus 4ac. All right, then they square root both sides, okay? Square root of the top just stays square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a on the bottom. Subtract 2a from both sides, so it's negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, guys, which is that's known as the quadratic formula. You guys on any sort of assessment, I know in Algebra 1 you guys got the formula, guys, that's going to be the same here. You'll get that formula. Okay, so it's just a matter of taking something in standard form. Notice it has to be equal to 0, and then plugging in a, b, and c. Okay, and this can be used to solve any quadratic equation. Okay, so anything, guys, these previous methods we've learned, we started with graphing. Well, graphing was only useful for a couple of types of problems. Guys, we looked at factoring, which made a couple more problems easier to solve. Then we finally looked at completing the square. Completing the square, we found out you could solve any problem. But what we did find out in completing the square, guys, that's a lot of work. Okay, they completed the square over here. That's a lot of work. So using the quadratic formula, where you're just plugging in a, b, and c, it's a lot less work than completing the square. Okay. So let's take a look at a few examples. I might skip over a couple here and there, but you'll at least get to see an example of each type. Okay. So these first couple example, or this first example at the top, guys, it's two rational roots. So to solve this problem, again, it should be solvable by factoring, which is certainly easier if you could notice that, but a lot of times, guys, it's not easy to notice right off the top if you can factor one, so I would just get right into solving it using the quadratic formula, which is what I'm going to do. Because I did say, again, they need to be equal to 0. We haven't seen a lot like that yet this chapter. Easy way, just subtract whatever's on that right side, move it to the left there. It cancels 11 minus 11, 0. So subtracted 11 from both sides. All right, guys, from there we can identify the coefficient of x squared, which is a, that's 1. Guys, b is negative 10, and c, the constant, is negative 11. So, guys, again, has to be equal to 0. Notice the sign, it's a negative 11. Okay, it wouldn't have been the same if we didn't have it equal to 0. Okay, so plugging that into the quadratic formula, which, again, I'll write down here, negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. So x equals negative, what are we substituting in for b? Negative 10 plus or minus square root of b squared, negative 10 squared minus 4 times, what's the coefficient a? 1 times c is negative 11. All divided by 2 times a is 1. So this is x equals negative 10, that's positive 10 out front there, plus or minus square root b squared, negative 10 squared, is going to be 100. Minus 4, 4 times 1 is 4, times negative 11, it's going to be plus 44. All over 2 times 1 is just 2. Okay, so this is 10 plus or minus square root of 144 over 2. Guys, when there's going to be rational roots, that's going to be something where, again, that's a perfect square. Guys, notice that is a perfect square. Square root of 144 is 12. Okay, so this is 10 plus or minus 12 over 2. Guys, splitting this up into two solutions here, x equals 10 plus 12 over 2. 10 plus 12, guys, that's 22 divided by 2. So that solution is 11. If we did 10 minus 12, x equals 10 minus 12 over 2, that's negative 2 over 2, or negative 1. Guys, so our solutions are x equals 11 and negative 1. Okay. So two rational roots, guys. That problem, like I said, you could solve this by factoring. Can also solve it using the quadratic formula, guys. Factoring, certainly the more efficient method. If you guys took this equation, let me change my color here. Because if you took it from this step, and you did notice that it factored, guys, numbers that multiply to negative 11 add to negative 10, negative 11, positive 1, x minus 11 equals 0, x equals 11, x plus 1 equals 0, x equals negative 1. Okay, so if you can solve them by factoring, guys, still easier to solve them by factoring. Okay, the nice thing about the quadratic formula is that you can solve any quadratic. Okay, so if you're unsure if you can factor something, you can still solve it by using the quadratic formula. Okay, so these next two, guys, try solving them using the quadratic formula. It's also a nice place to start because everything simplifies pretty nicely. There will be some cases where we get irrational numbers, guys, where that square root, it's not a perfect square. And so let's continue on, see if we can see a couple of examples like that. All right, so guys, this one claims to have one rational root. Should solve pretty quickly, so let's go ahead and take a look at it. Here it is equal to 0, so we'll just identify a as 1, b is 8, c is 16. And again, our formula, negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay. So x equals negative b, so negative 8, plus or minus square root of b squared, so 8 squared, minus 4 times a times c. So guys, this is x equals, all over 2 times a, 1. See, getting a little ahead of myself. Negative 8 plus or minus square root of 8 squared, 64, minus 4 times 1 is 4, times 16 is 64, all divided by 2. So guys, this one, it has one rational solution, because 64 minus 64, guys, that's the square root of 0, which is 0. So guys, this really just simplifies to negative 8. Well, plus 0 is negative 8, minus 0 is negative 8. So it's negative 8 over 2, which is negative 4. Okay, so a problem like that simplifies pretty nicely. Okay, kind of goes pretty quick in the quadratic formula. Again, could have been factored because it is a rational root. Okay, so here we've got an example where we've got irrational roots, so we should have two roots here, both irrational. So guys, let me take you through this one. it is equal to 0, so A is 2, B is 6, C is negative 7. Okay? So solving, we're going to go x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a, which again, a is 2 here, so this one's slightly different. Sorry, let me just pull up my calculator. I know we're going to need it on this problem, so I want to have it ready. Alright, so simplifying, x equals negative 6 plus or minus, well, 6 squared is 36, minus 4 times 2 is 8, times 7 is, oh, c is negative 7. So it's like that wasn't going to work out. Negative 4 times negative 7. Or negative 8 times negative 7. So that's a plus 56. All over 2 times 2, 4. Okay? So this is x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of, what, 36 and 56, 92. Okay? So unlike the last couple of examples where we had a perfect square inside of our square root, this is not. This is why it's called an irrational roots. Okay, if you use a calculator for the square root of 92, you're going to get, let me plug that in here, 9 point, let's go 2 decimals, 9.59. So this is x equals negative 6 plus or minus 5, or 9.59, all over 4. Okay, so when you write this as separate answers here, you've got negative 6 plus 9.59 over 4, and you've got negative 6, so actually let's just simplify this one. Negative 6 plus 9.59 is all divided by 4, you get 0.8975. Because if you plug that into your calculator, actually let me show you what you're going to need to do on the scientific calculators. You're going to do negative 6, well, you're going to do parentheses, negative 6 plus 9.59. You'll close those parentheses and then go divided by 4. Okay? Or you could just simplify this all at first and then divide by 4 at the end. Either way, what you should get is 8.75. 0.8975. I am sorry, guys. Being out of the routine for so long, I'm sure it's messing with us all a little bit. Okay, that was the plus solution. Now we got to take care of the minus one. X equals negative 6 minus 9.59, all divided by 4. Again, guys, you're plugging that in as negative 6 minus 9.59. Simplify all that, and then divide by 4. Doing all that on your calculators, guys, you should get negative 3.90. Okay, so those are your two solutions, both irrational roots. Alright, guys, tomorrow we're going to take a look at ones where they are, just a little look ahead, where we have complex roots, okay? Don't want to keep you guys too much longer today, so we'll stop there, and your homework, I'll put up on Canvas what we're doing for our assignment today, okay? Everyone have a wonderful afternoon, and see you all tomorrow.